Good day, good people, and welcome to Real Chicks Rock Presents Real Discussions. I am your host, Michelle Dawes Birt, and as always, I'm super excited to be here. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood here in Atlanta, Georgia. Middle of summer, it is hot. Things are going on here, but we are so glad to be above ground, right? We got another opportunity and another day just to give thanks. Today, my conversation is with a beautiful woman. She is busy, but blessed and just a talent. And we're going to talk about all of the things that she has done in her career this afternoon. My topic today is setting your story free. And my guest today is Ardre Orie. How are you?
I am well. Thank you so much for having me.
You look beautiful. What a wonderful outfit. Thank you so much
you.
for spending some time with me today.
Of course.
Where are you from, you beautiful person? Where are you from?
I am from Gainesville, Florida.
What's going on in Gainesville? What's happening down there?
You know, Gainesville is a very special place because there is such a mix of the socioeconomic statuses.
Really?
And so you can do a little of everything. You can go from the White House to the trap house.
Okay now. All right now. So being a child in Gainesville, Florida, what was it like for you? I mean, you said it's socioeconomical differences there, but what was it like for you as a child growing up with your family and in your neighborhood?
So, you know, my family in Gainesville consisted of my mother. That was it.
Okay.
It was it is a small town. It's a college town. The University of Florida is there. And it is a place where there is family. There are people who have, lots of family and lots of generations there. I didn't. And so that was something that definitely made me different in that space because I didn't have a lot of the familiar support that many people did. Yes.
Did you find that maybe imagination was your friend because you didn't have a family? Or did you do a lot of reading when you were a child? How did that blossom for you?
So, absolutely. It's funny enough, there was a man he was about 80 years old, and he was my best friend when I was very, very young. And I'm thankful because, you hear so many stories of young children and interactions, right, with older people. But this man was so kind to me, and I would bake mud pies and take them on my tricycle over to him, and in exchange for that he would give me fresh fruit. He had a beautiful pear tree and apple tree and oranges, and he would give me fruit, big bags of fruit, and I would take that back to my mom. So I would sit with him and I would watch Western cowboy movies and shows. And so my imagination was very, very vivid because I was entertaining him. Mr. Ted was his name. I was entertaining him. And I think now, in retrospect, I was keeping him company because he lived alone.
Yeah. You were probably a grandchild.
Yes.
That he always wanted. And so he was pouring that love and attention into you, and you were just receiving it.
I was receiving
and it was good. And that's great to have that experience. That's awesome.
Yes.
So did you first start writing? Was it at 10 years old? When did you first start?
So I know that, the roots of that started much younger because I would also entertain my mom, right? It was just the two of us. And so I would put on these shows for her, like all children. And she was humored by that. But at the age of 10, I got pulled out of class because I talk too much, like many people, right? That's a very common theme amongst people who are creative.
Yeah.
So there was a lady, Dr. Harris, she pulled me out of the class and she said, I want you to come with me. And we walked the corridor and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm in trouble again.
You're in trouble now.
And we got to her classroom and it was like nothing I had ever seen. The walls were colorful. There was art. It was just vivid.
Nice.
So I'm like, okay, what is this? So she said, I feel like you're finishing your work early. And I want to give you something to do, but I don't want you to just be busy. I want you to create. Those were her words. And I said, okay, well, so I'm in the clear. I'm not in trouble.
Yes.
What should I create? And she said, well, I want you to decide what you're going to create. And she said, you can sing, you can paint, you can dance, you can whatever, right? You need to create something. So I thought, okay, I'll write because that's the next best thing to talking, right? So I'll write. And she said, well, what are you going to write? And so that one meeting went from meeting her one day, went to multiple times a week. And I made the decision that I was going to write about women in my community that I felt like we didn't see. I didn't feel like we being Black girls, that we saw successful Black women. I knew that they existed, but on TV, that wasn't what I saw. Thank goodness for Claire Huxtable, right?
Right, okay.
Right? She was the only Black attorney that I had ever seen on TV. So I went through the phone book, because at that time there was not Google, showing my age, but that's the reality. There was a phone book. In the phone book, I searched and searched. And then I found various women, scientists, engineers, attorneys, chemists, all the things.
Okay.
And I contacted them, cold call. Right?
Really?
To ask them if I could interview them. And they said yes. I told them who I was, and they allowed me to interview them and to write their stories.
And this is at 10?
This is at 10. Because this is, I have to stay out of trouble.
Yeah.
So I'm going to make this.
Because you talk too much.
Talk too much. So let's expand this. Let's make it as big as it can be.
Yes.
And this is every time, Dr. Harris is saying, okay, so what are you going to do after you interview them? So I was like, well, I'm going to write a book. I didn't know anything about writing a book, but that's what I told her I would do. So she said, okay, well, now you need to research how to do that. So I wrote their interviews. I started doing research about assembling a book. Yes. And then after the book was done, she said, now what are you going to do? And I said, well, I'm going to have a book signing. I don't know. So she said, well, who are you going to invite to the signing? And I said, well, I'm going to invite the press and media. So I contacted the press and media. So the book signing turned into all of those beautiful women coming to the school. The administrators of the school came in. It was like everything stopped for a moment. And that press and media landed me a front page article on our local paper, right? So the caveat to that is that once I finished the book signing, I came back home that day, and my mother had this her hands were filled with money. And I said, what is that? And she said, here you go. And I was like, what are you doing?
Right.
And she said, this is yours. And I was like, what? What do you mean? And she said, this is the money from your book signing.
Wow.
And so that day I learned two very important lessons. One, that stories make people come together, right?
Okay.
Stories bring us together. Stories are necessity in those women. Black girls, as well as everybody else, was able to see themselves and potential in these profiles of these women. But also, telling your story one time can be monetized forever. So at 10 years old, being someone who had come from a humble circumstance, single parent home, not having a father, being very dark skinned in the hot Florida sun that continued to magnify the melanin, right?
Which is beautiful.
Well, thank you. But back then, that was what I was picked at for. And I thought, this is not something I can, I can't do anything about this.
Yes.
So I don't know what you want me to do about it. But I had not found the one thing that made me special. And we all have it. Nobody is born without genius. We all have it. I had not found that one thing. But that day, that story, writing that book, finding out those lessons let me know that was my one thing. So at 10 years old, I discovered
That's a beautiful story and a beautiful discovery, because you took an opportunity, instead of trying to feel sorry for yourself, you was like, no, there has to be women out here.
Have to be.
Black women in particular that are doing great things. Just because I can't see it or they're not living on my street doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Right.
So the fact that you had the drive to even want to find said community brought community together and gave other young girls like yourself, even a little older, younger, whatever, wow, I didn't know that a scientist or this type of person, this attorney, this type of law, a doctor, like various different professions. And so now people are thinking and dreaming bigger now because of this interaction, because of what you did and writing about them. Again, not putting the spotlight on yourself.
No.
But focusing on other people that are doing great things and bringing them together at 10 years old.
10 years
That's
old.
awesome.
Oh, thank
So you caught the bug. So now you're like, I want to write stories. Is that how that went?
It did, and but true to storytelling, there has to be pivots and ups and downs.
Yes,
And
yes,
so story, what I didn't know at that time was that I would need it later for survival. Right? So as time went on, I became kind of like that child prodigy. Oh, she's the girl. And my mom and I would literally print more books and sell them out of our trunk. We would go places. Wow. Do you have a book? Do you have a book? So we would do that, which was great. Eventually, my mother found what she thought was love, right? And I knew that she had sacrificed so much to raise me. Yeah. Immediately when she introduced me to this person, I knew this is not good, right? But I felt like I couldn't say that because she had sacrificed so much. So I didn't want to stand in the way of what she believed to be happiness. So I remained silent. And so my home went from a place of peace to a place of paranoia. And instead of, writing about happy things, I was using writing as a way to place the thoughts that were not safe. Yeah. And so domestic violence became the leading force in our home. I was worried all the time, as to whether or not he would take her life. And I felt that it was now my time to protect her because that is what she had done for me. Yes. So middle school was very tumultuous because I was just trying to survive. Right, yeah. I went from, being a great student to being on the borderline of being expelled. We had one car. And of course, when someone comes into your life and they have less resources, that can be problematic, right? So he would take the one car we had and we would have to walk to the corner mart to get like canned foods and things because we didn't have a way to get to the grocery store. So it just became a really, really difficult and dark time. And so writing became the place that I would have my safe thoughts, right? And so it saved me too. Yeah. It healed me. And it helped me to really realize that you have to be able to get things out, whether they're good, bad, indifferent. It all has to go somewhere, and it will go somewhere, right? So during that era, writing was a savior for me.
Were you in that space, that tumultuous space, for a long time? Was it several years?
Yes, it lasted for the duration. It was about a 3-year period. The hard part about it is that the domestic violence laws were very stringent at that time. They really hadn't put a lot, like you had to be dying, to get help. And so calling the police, that the person could still remain in the house even after you called the police after an incident. And so the kind of hiatus of all of that was when I was in detention because I was a regular detention. I was assigned detention on a regular basis. But this particular day, I called my mom to pick me up from detention and she didn't answer. And I was always kind of on the borderline of, is this going to be the day? Is this going to be the day? Yes. So she didn't answer. So my teacher volunteered to take me home. And I know she was ready for me to go because I was someone who acted up in her class. And she dropped me off, and I remember placing my key in the door. And so I was angry because I'm like, why didn't you pick me up from school? I was upset with my mother. And when I opened the door, I don't know, it was just strange. Your intuition, your inner GPS is always at work, whether we listen to it or not. Right. But I knew something was off. So when I opened the door, there was just a silence that was different. And so I was calling out, for my mom. She didn't answer. And that being upset transition to concern. Is this the day? Right. So I'm walking the narrow hallway. I'm getting down. I'm calling her name. Ma, are you there? Are you here? Nothing. And so when I get to her room, which is on the left, I see her feet.
Oh my gosh.
She's on the ground, and I'm like, this is the day. So as I walk towards her, her body is limp on the ground. And the closer I get, I'm making peace with the fact that this is the day that I have dreaded for so long. But the closer I get, as I bend down, she's breathing faintly. So I'm like, okay. So I jump down to her. I pull her into my arms, and, you know, she is unrecognizable. I cannot identify her face because she had been beaten so severely. And it was on that day that I cried out to God, and I said, God, if you get us through this, I promise you that I will use my whatever it is that you've given me for good. Because the only thing that I want to do is to make this woman proud. I do not want to be an accessory to her hurt. She is already hurt. I don't want to contribute to that. I want to make her proud. And so it was a change for me. You know, it was an enlightening moment. And she didn't have the strength to call out to God, but I was able to do so on her behalf and on my behalf. And so, you know, that was intercession. From that point forward, we were able to set it up so that he couldn't come back. He got arrested on a different warrant, wasn't the domestic violence, but a different warrant. And, you know, together, she and I worked to have him serve with divorce papers while he was in jail. And so it wasn't over, but that was certainly a transition in, you know, that tumultuous time for us. Yeah.
I'm holding back tears. You're so good at telling stories, because I felt like I was there with you, walking to see your mom and her feet and everything. So wow, you just took my breath away on that. And I just know that was just a difficult time for you, and God gave you the strength. So we're grateful for that.
Yes.
And so now your focus is even more clear, right? Because you know that you have an assignment. Right. You gave God your word.
Yes.
And so now you're on assignment. So now how do you start to tell your stories from this point?
You know, I go mute. Honestly, I don't speak them as boldly. I don't have the audacity that I once had because it was embarrassing. You know, that was house business. And so it wasn't something that, you know, now we live in a day and age where expression of our trauma, there's healing in that. You know, you're not shunned for what you've been through. Even the worst, you know, we now celebrate. And at times people trauma bond, you know, but at that time that wasn't something that we wanted anyone to know about. And to add layers to that, my mother was a dynamic woman who was a counselor. So as a profession, her job was to help people to get out of situations like that. And so for her to not be able to do that for herself, that there was shame in that. And there was shame that we carried as a result of that. So I didn't tell stories, and I got more vested in sharing other people's journeys. So I journaled a lot, continued with that, but I just tried to be involved in school. I tried to be a good person, and I tried to navigate, you know, adolescence in a way that would make her proud. But I was still a teenager. So I still, of course, you know, disappointed her in many, many ways because I still had to figure myself out. You know, so from there, I didn't put my pen down, but storytelling certainly looked very different, very, very different.
Did you have this point of view even while in college? Your storytelling, it was really from someone else's point of view, not really sharing your own. When did you get to a point that you no longer do I need to be ashamed of what happened? Did that ever leave you?
So, you know, I tried to hide behind other people's stories, I think, for a very long time. Throughout college, you know, that went fine. I did not major in writing in college. I majored in education because that was what the women before me majored in, right? They majored in education. So I did the same thing, went to school for that, became an assistant principal. And it wasn't until I resigned from that job, writing was calling me. I didn't know it was writing, but it was calling me. And my husband said, just write. And I was like, that doesn't make sense. You can't make money from writing.
Yeah, right.
That doesn't make sense. So we were transitioning from Florida to Georgia. He got a position, and I had been working hard to be an assistant principal, and I was like, now I have to go back, get my certification again, all the things. So anyways, we got to Georgia. He said, just write. And I thought that sounded absolutely crazy. But I tried so many businesses, and I need people to understand there is not one way to business, right?
Okay, yes.
It is a, squiggly road, and the road to entrepreneurship is not straight and narrow.
No.
So I tried many businesses and brands. I wouldn't say they failed. They were all internships for me to do what I was doing.
Yes.
So Atlanta was kind of on the cusp of becoming this mini Hollywood. The entertainment industry started to bustle a little bit.
Yeah.
And I had started a nonprofit organization for women and teen girls, because that's what I wanted to pour back into the same, entity that I had always kind of entertained. So in doing that, I launched a cosmetics company. And the cosmetics company was supposed to give women messages of affirmation, love yourself, all those things, because that's what we have always struggled with, women.
Right.
So I was a makeup artist. I would go on set, photo shoots, video shoots, all the things, and I would be the makeup artist if they would allow me to bring my lip gloss and lipstick products, right? Okay. So I would be there, and I would hear women say, oh, that's not my good side. Don't. And I'm like, you look stunning. Like, what are you talking about?
Yes.
And it bothered me so bad that women weren't feeling happy about who they were. And I understood that, right? That went back to my roots of understanding how that can manifest domestic violence, abuse of self, all things.
Yes.
So I decided, okay, great. I don't have the money to advertise in traditional magazines. I'm going to write a book. Okay. That sounded like a good idea. So I started researching, going to publishers, and they're like, okay, it's going to be $10,000 to write the book. And I'm like, wait, for you to write it? And they're like, no, just to publish it. And I'm like, wait, I just walked away from this profession that I've been working almost a decade to be in. I don't have $10,000 to publish a book. So I started doing a lot of research. A couple of things happened. One, I had been doing the nonprofit organization, robbing Peter to pay Paul. I was literally taking money from my groceries to try to buy snacks for the community service and the young ladies we were servicing, and I wasn't getting paid. So I went to this one publisher and I said, if I make a down payment, would you let me just finish writing the book? I promise to have the rest. That was a step of faith, right? Okay, so you wouldn't believe that the half that I needed was sent to me in a check from the school districts I had been servicing through my community service, like the exact amount they had forgotten to pay me. And I had forgotten that I needed that I was, and so I had the money to pay for it. Of course, right?
Yeah, we know who was responsible for that.
You know who it was, Most High. So I decided to write this book. Again, I'm 21 women and teen girls. Let's talk about alopecia. Let's talk about being very dark. Let's talk about being very fair. Let's talk about somebody who is covered in freckles. Let's talk about somebody who's experienced domestic violence. Let's talk about somebody who has struggled with self-esteem. So I had this one weekend, brought all of these women together, 21 women and teen girls, sat around in a circle, contacted a hair salon, beauty salon, asked them to volunteer their services. They were all willing.
Yes.
Right? Everybody told me their story. I didn't write anything down. I just listened. Okay. The next day we did a big photo shoot. Great. Go back. I write all of their stories as if I'm them. This is the first time I'm writing it as if I am them. Right? So then I'm like, okay, great. Now I need to get their permission. I need them to like what I've written. So I call everybody, read it to them.
Yes.
They're in tears. So I'm like, you like that?
Yeah, like I was just a few minutes ago.
You like it? Right. Yeah. You like what I wrote?
Oh my gosh.
All right. So I call the next one. So I'm like, okay, I'm on a roll. Call everybody. We're crying. We're in tears. These women believe that this book was theirs.
Yes.
Because they were empowered by their stories, right? It was their story.
Yes.
So a couple of things. One, the editor, submit my book. He said, well, why do you keep telling everybody else's story?
Bum, 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 bum. Yes.
And I said, because these are stories that need to be told. Women need to be empowered. He said, yes, but why are you telling their stories? And I said, I don't know. And he said, but if you're telling their stories, what about your story? And I said, but this isn't about me. And he said, but it is as much about you as it is them.
Wow. And that's the thing that we have when we want to serve. We feel it's never about us, and we feel like our story is not that important, or nobody would listen, or how do I even tell my own story? Whereas these other beautiful people, their stories are much more impactful than what I have to say. I'm just going to tell their story.
Right.
So did the light bulb go off when he said that, or did you still fight a little bit?
I fought a little, but he pushed back.
You look like a fighter.
I tried. I tried real hard.
A beautiful fighter. You look
hard.
like, no.
You know, he wasn't having it.
No.
He wasn't having it. And he said, until you come face to face with your own truth, the meaning of this book is empty. I was like, wow. Right? So I could not. And so I was forced to address what I had been, holding back, which was the abuse in my home and the shame that was associated with that. I was forced to address the fact that I was on this crusade to help women feel good about themselves because I had for so long not felt good about myself. Because I felt that if the one person, the first man that is to love you does not and rejects you, then certainly there's something wrong with you, right? So there was something wrong with me. I must have been broken.
Yes.
I was not worthy of love.
Wow.
And I was being raised by someone who also felt she was not worthy of love. And she had been raised by someone who did not feel worthy of love, hence her domestic violence riddled relationship. Right? So now I'm forced to decide, how do I speak that truth? Because it's not all my truth. Some of it is my mother's truth. Right. But I had to become ferociously unapologetic about the fact that it was my story to tell.
Now. And how does it feel? I have to close my eyes when I say this, because just you speaking is going to make me cry. How does it feel to break generational cycles? Okay, I won't let that sit for a minute.
Ooh.
Yeah. Generational cycles with your pen. How does that feel for you?
It is, there are no words. There are times where, and I don't want to cry. There are times where I still question if I'm worthy. Yeah. There are times when I've been married for almost 22 years, and I never saw myself as someone who would be married.
Wow.
Never. Didn't think it was for me. Had not seen what a healthy marriage looked like. Didn't have a blueprint. So it is very, very meaningful for me because I had been so laser focused on trying to help other people do it.
Yes.
And I didn't realize that it was for me too.
Yes.
So I have to at times remind myself that I am worthy. I think that society constantly tells us that we are not worthy of love, particularly Black women. We have to go back to historically how we've been treated.
I know.
And we can't have the conversation without talking about that. We can't have the conversation without acknowledging, that we were threatened to not love ourselves. That's a generational, deep-seated message. And so in everything, in media, the things we consume, that messaging is still there. It's still there. And so we have to fight against that even today.
Yeah.
Even in a time where social media says melanin is beautiful, we still have to fight against those messages. So I just think it's important that we continue to do the work outside and inside of ourselves, because we all need it. And so every time I try to, every time I'm in communication with someone, I try to leave them better. I try to make sure that every interaction is positive, even if it didn't start that way. I try to make sure that that is the case because it's the love that I want to receive. It's the love I want to receive.
You put out what you want to receive.
I do.
Absolutely. Man, what a beautiful journey so far. My goodness. Yes. And doing generational work is not easy. And nor did we ask for it.
Didn't.
But God knew from the time we came out of our mom that we would be the ones to change the narrative for our families, to change, to break those cycles, which have been subtle. Some might have been subtle, some might have been really loud, but whatever it was, it's not going forward, right? It ends with us. It ends with so you ended it with your pen. Pen is mightier than the sword, I tell you.
Yes.
Ooh, yeah. And so your body of work is phenomenal because you're a screenwriter, a celebrity screenwriter, ghostwriter, publishing expert, playwright, film director, CEO. Like, what haven't you done?
You know, I feel like I haven't done enough. And I literally just posted today that, you know, many times a week, I pray and I ask God to give me time to empty all the stories that are inside of me, because I don't want to leave here with any of them. Let me leave empty. You know, so I pray for the time and the opportunity and the capacity, you know, the space in my heart and in my head to be able to empty them out.
Ooh, you are the second person in my life that I've heard say that. I heard a deacon say, when he stand before the Most High, he wants to be empty. Of every gift and talent that God ever put in him, he wants to be empty. And it makes you think, because if you have these things and you're not exercising them and utilizing them, then you were out of will, you were greedy, you were selfish, because you kept them all for yourself. So we're supposed to be empty when we get there.
Oh, yes.
My goodness.
Yes.
And so that's what you want to do. Are you teaching others how to write?
Yeah. So I started what's called the Orie Agency Writers Room, and it is my group of apprentices. And so every month we meet. I give them real assignments so that they can add to their resumes the same things I have on my resume. I teach them about the various ways they can earn money and income while making an impact, you know, with their pens. So pouring into that group of people, that group of writers and creatives has been amazing. I'm able to give them work from the work that I have. So yes, always pouring back.
It's beautiful, because there was a time, I think we're starting to balance out a little bit, but there was a time where reality TV was the thing, right? Therefore, writers were not needed, right? People that could tell stories, imaginary or not, maybe fictional with a hint of facts. All of that was going away, right, for the most part, because they just wanted to do this reality TV. Now you're starting to see good writing, like you're hearing it. I have to give Shonda Rhimes, right?
Of course.
Somebody like her, because this Bridgerton thing is something else. The diversity is amazing. The costume designs are amazing, are beautiful, but the writing is there, and that's what I think we need that, right? Yes. And so for you to be able to hold space and do that, even when we had that flux, that period of everything was reality TV, I think we're getting back. Kudos to you to be able to continue that and have people that desire to write.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And do you find that your students were journaling first, or they've always had this thing of writing, or no, it just...
No, many of them do. They all, you know, enjoyed the craft of writing. Absolutely. Different formats, you know, some sci-fi, some thriller, horror, you know, things that we don't often see in our community. But they all definitely wanted to write, for sure. For sure. Yes.
People say to me, Michelle, you should write a book. And I'm like, I tell them, I don't know. I made a pact with somebody a couple years ago. I said, I'm going to write a book. I don't even know where to begin. Again, it goes back to, who would want to read my story? But is it really for them, or really is writing a release for the author?
You know, both. I would say both. And I think that every person should write at least one book. I've always felt that way. Because the thing is, you know, think about where we're headed, or where we are, should I say, even in the age of AI, right?
Yes.
I'm not fully against AI at all.
Yes.
I am for ethical use of AI. I think that AI should not replace the human experience in any way, shape, or form. But it is very necessary for us to document our stories according to the truths that we have lived.
Yes.
So say, for example, you know, you want your story and your experiences to be accurately depicted, right?
Right.
If you don't do that, you run the risk of someone recreating what is your reality.
Correct.
And I think that we have to make sure we don't allow that to happen. We have, as Black people, melanated people, Black and brown, whatever way you want to address that, we have seen what erasure of history does. And so particularly for us, we should see that it is very necessary for us to jot this information down, to document it. It's necessary. So I don't think it's a question of should I. I think it's a question of, as you said, how do I, what story do I want to tell, and how immediately can I begin this process? But I don't think we can afford to not tell our stories.
You're right. You're right. Now that you put it in that context, you're right. Right, because who else can better tell my story than me?
No one.
No one.
No one.
No one. And I wouldn't want my living to be in vain, because I feel like I'm doing something of good.
Absolutely.
And it is changing a narrative for future generations. And that's not to condemn the generations that have come before me.
No.
They did the best they knew with what they had.
Absolutely.
But now the world is plentiful of resources now. So we should be able to catapult the generations that come behind us, because we have everything. AI, the internet, there's social media. Listen, if you don't want to take the time to read a book, you can listen to a book, because I'm an audible I'm an audible person.
Right.
So if you write it, I'm like, I would love to hear your voice.
Sure.
Tell me your story.
Absolutely.
And I absorb it.
Yes.
So I'm a listener more than I am a reader. It's there. The tools are there. So you're right. I'm definitely going to figure out the how and what I want to say. What I want to say, because it's almost as if Black people can be erased.
Absolutely.
Or definitely dismissed.
Correct.
You know, at any given moment.
Correct.
Well, we don't want to be bothered, like it's a dismissal.
Right.
And we've contributed too much to society and to this world to be put in that position.
Right.
Now that Atlanta has become this media, really movie mecca place, everything now, I see Georgia at the end of the credits, the peach at the end, right? Are you finding yourself like having to turn down work because it's just so much coming your way now? What's going on?
Well, I now decide what work I'm going to take based on who I'm going to become as a result of it. Right? So I'm not trying to work just to make a dollar.
I know that's right. I hear
I'm
you.
not saying at all that I don't want to make money. I'm not saying that.
Right.
I believe that what we say to the universe and the things that we, speak out loud and the words that we commit to paper have power. So in no shape or form am I not saying I don't want to earn resources, because that is the way that you help others, right? You can't do it if you can't help yourself.
Right.
So, but I am always thinking about what transformation will happen inside of me because of a project, right? So like right now I have an author who is 67 years old. She was born into the civil rights movement. She was heavily influenced by that. And as a result of that, she became this fireball for, justice and really setting the world on fire. Being in someone like that, in her company, being in her presence, a transformation has to happen within you, right? It's not possible. That's like sitting at the feet of your elders.
Yes.
So I know that working with someone like that will create change in me, will create awareness inside of me. On the flip side of that, I have a young man who got the highest charges that you can get for drug trafficking felonies, and he's in the music industry. Understanding the shift and the transformation that happens in someone like that in their life who now wants to share a message of righteousness, that's going to enlighten me, right? And so there's no judgment from me for whose story I tell, because I'm a vessel, right? But I think about the transformation that will happen inside of me, the enlightenment that will allow me to help others. And so that's how I choose what projects to be attached to.
And that's beautiful that you have a choice.
Yes.
Because oftentimes when we start initially, it's really survival or just really getting that bag to make sure, because we got to provide or put food on the table.
Yes.
That type of thing. But now to be in a space that you can say, I make decisions based on my character, integrity for me.
Yes.
No judgment to anyone else.
Right.
Because you live with that, right? You're going to live with that experience, cohabitate with this person, you know, writing and that type of thing. And so you want to make sure whatever gets on you is something that you can live with within your consciousness.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Sounds good. I wanted to ask you, of all of the different hats that you wear or have worn, do you have a favorite?
A favorite. You know, my favorite is being a wife and a mom, honestly.
Really?
It is. Because again, I didn't think I could would,
girl.
right?
Come on
So
now.
it's like a crown to be able to see this as my reality.
Wow.
It's what I look forward to. And that is why doing this, you know, the writing, it's almost like two different lives, because I compartmentalize that. You know, when I speak to someone and we're talking about an extremely traumatic experience, when I hang up the phone or when I leave that client, I leave that right there. And then I step back into a place that is peaceful. And it's taken a long time. You know, marriage is not easy. And again, you know, we didn't have a blueprint of how to navigate that. Parenthood is not easy, as you know. We were talking about that, right? We've discussed. So it's not easy, but it is fulfilling, because it is like a garden, you know, and the more you continue to plant seeds of promise and being able to see those seeds manifest, I'm so thankful for that. So I would say that is one of the greatest gifts that I have been given by life. Yeah.
That's beautiful. You wear it well too.
Oh, thank
you. Wear it well. I fell in love with you when we talked on the phone. Ghostwriting. What is that really about? I have an idea what it is, but I want you to explain really, what is ghostwriting?
You know, it is emotional surrogacy.
Is that right?
It is emotional surrogacy.
Wow.
That's what it is.
All right now.
That's what it is. And so, again, my mother was a counselor. She taught me how to listen really, really well. So when you talk about, you know, auditory, I listen to books as well. I listen to what people don't say too, though.
That's
See,
a skill.
There's so much in silence, right?
Yeah.
When someone is speaking and they pause, there's something there, right? When you care about someone and you don't hear from them, there's something in silence. And because we're all so busy, we're listening to respond versus listening to hear. I'm always listening to hear. I'm listening to understand. So that is, to me, one of the reasons why that is a great career for me. I think that I've always been very emotionally tapped in. And I've known that. Again, you know, no person is born without genius. And we're just very fortunate if we get to discover ours while here. That's a gift. So that emotional intelligence, I've known about it. I've been aware of it. I might not have had the vocabulary to assign it by name, but I've always known it. So in the ghostwriting space, when I'm taking in what someone says, or what they don't say, I am able to tap into where they might have been emotionally at that time, which then gets transferred back to the pages, because it's so much more than a timeline of events. It's so much more than a series of things that happen to you. Memoir, which is what I love to write, is about making someone feel the weight that you felt in the moment of what happened to you. It is about helping someone to understand what you now understand about what happened to you.
Nice.
It is about connecting the dots and understanding the patterns of your life, ones that you continue to repeat that bring you joy, ones that you continue to repeat that bring you pain, ones that make you suffer, ones that you sacrifice. All of those things is what should be manifested in a memoir. So I just think that because of the emotional intelligence, that allows me to be able to commit those words back to pages.
Wow. And in the ghostwriting space, you get credit as the writer as well as the other person? Or no?
Not always.
Okay.
And so, one of the things you said is great that you have a choice as far as the projects you want to take.
Yes.
I did not always have a choice. It was sometimes about this is, I need to
Right.
build a business, right?
Yes.
But what I learned is that even when you take projects that, well, let me say it this way. When you are hungry, you'll eat anything.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And so I have tried to fill the spaces in myself that make me hungry so that I never sit down at the table without feeling full. That means that will empower you to walk away from situations and circumstances that won't serve you or the other person. Right?
Wow. Yes.
So in that, there were many times that I did not get credit for the writing. And as a ghostwriter, that's a part of it. But as you continue to grow in your career, it's about writing the book with. It's about as told to. Because if you don't have credit, you're not able to say what you've done.
Right.
And a lot of times, many of the jobs, depending on the category you're writing for, they want to know what you've done. So if you can't say what you've done, then it's hard to prove that you're capable for certain jobs. So now I am at a point where there is shared credit, or my resume that gets passed around does have a listing. But there are tons of projects that I can't speak about and that I, am not able to acknowledge.
Yeah.
And that's okay. They were all stepping stones.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes. Now you're in a beautiful place because you've advocated space for women, young women in general. You're now advocating for men too, right? For their mental health. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Oh my gosh. So Philando Castile, remember that?
Yes.
For whatever reason, I was sitting in my bed. I was holding my oldest daughter. She was a newborn at the time, I think. And I watched that video. I didn't know what I was about to watch. I had seen, obviously it was traumatizing to some, but I watched it, and the terror and the helplessness was just too much. And I thought, okay, I have a Black husband. I have a Black son. This could easily be.
Easy.
Right? And even if they weren't my Black husband and my Black son, this is my Black brother, regardless of if I know him or not.
Right.
Sitting in a car with his fiance and child, and this is what happened to him. I just couldn't believe it. And so I felt so helpless. What can I do? What can I do? And I was praying and trying to figure out, what can I do? And so one of the things I did is I launched an initiative for Black men to become published authors, because I thought, well, Philando never got to tell his side of the story, right? The same way I said it needed to be documented. What is Philando's truth, according to him, not someone else?
Right.
So that pained me. So what I knew that I had was my independent publishing house. Okay, I'm going to launch this initiative. I'm going to figure out how to fund an initiative for 100 Black men to become published authors. So I started 100 Seeds of Promise. I'm still working to that end. We have men continuously coming to the fold. As a matter of fact, I'm going to a book signing for one of those men when I leave here today.
Nice.
Hey, it's still happening. Thank you, Lord. But that was one thing. So I knew then, wait, if I am a Black woman and this affected me this way, what does it feel like to be a Black man walking around in this country?
Yeah, right.
To know that you are not safe. Because I had never taken that into consideration. To be honest, I was blind. I love wearing rose-colored glasses, and I certainly had them on prior to that moment, right? So I thought, okay, if Black men do not feel safe, how can you be emotionally stable?
Good point.
And how can you feel safe expressing your emotions if you've been told, don't cry, men don't cry.
Right.
Be strong.
Yeah. Man up.
Get up, right? So I have always wanted to create spaces and capacity for Black men to feel safe. And I just didn't know what that looked like besides the books. I knew, okay, writing. Eventually, I created a theatrical production called Ardre Orie Presents The Heart of a Man, where I wrote scripts for men with different scenarios that I know that they encountered. Everything from love and relationships, spirituality, sexuality, you name it, I wanted to talk about it. So I interviewed my husband. You know, over the course of this time we've been married, we have very critical and difficult conversations about what men think and feel. And it helps me to stay grounded in the fact that I still don't understand men, right? There's no way for me to be a man because I'm not.
You're not.
So I need to be in a position where I am willing to hear and to listen, right? And to know that I am also accountable for my actions that maybe create men feeling safe or not safe. So this production became that. And I wrote these scripts because I wanted men to feel heard. I wanted men to feel seen. I wanted men to feel appreciated. And that's exactly what it turned into. And the men were more excited than anything I have ever seen.
That's good.
When the cast comes together, there is magic that happens in the room. Anybody who has ever attended any of our rehearsals can attest to the fact that as women, we sit back and we just look. We're like, wow, the camaraderie, the community, the laughter, the joy, the healing. There have been times where the men have covered one another in prayer. It's so beautiful.
It's nice.
So that is what the theatrical production is all about. And I also have a production that is an all women's cast.
Nice.
Same thing.
Nice.
We need space to heal and come together.
We do. We do. What's next for you? What's next?
Next. So continuing to write screenplays, right? I want to see this work visually, right? Continuing to write memoir. Continuing to do screenplays. I also do retreats, luxury writing and reading retreats. This has been primarily focused on Black women and normalizing the conversation about luxury, right? Because a lot of times we have been made to believe that luxury was for someone else.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's for us.
It's for us.
And so we've been to Paris, we've been to Milan, we've been to Belize, we've been to Cabo. And we have new trips coming in 2025. So really bringing women together so that we can heal together. We can just go and be, right? Just go and be, because we need that.
We do.
We need that. So Ardre Orie Retreats, I am also launching it's called Lit in the City. It is a silent book reading club. No one tells you what to read. You bring what you want to read, but it is a night out. This is for people who are introverted and those who are extroverted.
Nice.
If you are introverted, you don't have to talk. All you have to do is read and enjoy the environment. If you are extroverted, after we finish our reading segment, we get together and we talk. So we're doing the first one at Chateau Elan, which is here in Atlanta, Greater Atlanta. And I'm going to be doing that, going on tour in different cities to do that. Beautiful. Just encouraging women. Okay.
Right.
Based on this political climate, I have a children's book that I wrote with my youngest daughter in 2016, but it is more apt and prevalent to the political climate right now. So that's in editing, definitely going to release that. And then I have my own novel.
Oh!
I've been writing this novel for 5 years. And you know that what you do very well for others is one of the most difficult things to do for yourself.
Yes.
This novel is a multi-generational novel about Black women and their mothers.
Stop. I'm going to cry.
Right?
I'm going to cry.
and what we don't share about our relationships. And it examines and unpacks why we make some of the same mistakes, because the generations before us have not been transparent about what happened to them.
No, they don't talk about it.
They don't talk about it. But in this book, it comes full circle, where a mother has to, right? If she wants to save her daughter, she has to. And so it's a difference when you realize that those secrets are what is making your daughter suffer. And so we're going to unpack those secrets in this novel. She won't be able to find love or love at all without her mother unpacking those secrets.
My goodness.
So I can't wait to be finished with that, but it's on the move. I'm excited about it.
My goodness.
So that's what's coming up.
Ooh.
That's what's coming up.
You beautiful thing, you.
You too.
Oh,
You too.
man, that's a lot of great work. I'm so happy for you. This is good. You inspired me to want to tell my truth.
You must.
Tell my story. I'm going to pick up my pen and
Absolutely.
And I know it's not about the number of pages or anything like that. It's just telling, expressing your story and getting it out and getting it out on paper.
Yes.
I'd be the first in my generation to do so.
Oh, well, you must. And know this, story does not look one way. So you may decide, you know what, I want to place all of mine into a book of affirmations, right?
That's a good
I
idea.
want to do all of mine into some type of journal. It doesn't have to be pages and pages and pages.
That's good to know. Good to know.
Quotes.
That's good to know.
Things that I live by. Mantras.
Yeah. Things that have helped me during dark seasons.
Correct.
Things that I said when I got over. When I got over or got through.
That's right. And I want you to know the book is already written.
Ooh,
you know why? Because in doing this show, you have already said so many dynamic things. If you go back and you get the various episodes, you will pull all the content already for your book. It's already done. You need to know that it is done.
I've done over 200 shows.
Your book is written.
We have been podcasting since 2016.
The book is done.
I've been doing it for a minute.
Please be clear. The book is finished.
How can people find you? How can they find you? Are you on the social media streets?
We love the social media streets. We love them, okay? She's all up and through the social media streets, driving on a daily basis. Because why? We have to be visible.
Yes.
If you're not out waving the white flag, how can people find you?
I know.
Right? I need the people that need to find me to know how to find me. They have to see me.
Yes.
It's my duty. So you can find me at I am Ardre Orie. Let me spell it out. IamArdreorie.com. That's my website. That is all social media. I am Ardre Orie.
Oh, she's beautiful. This was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I wish you nothing but continued success
Thank
in
you.
everything that you do. And I'm so grateful to have met you and to have this conversation with you. I feel the love.
Yes.
And I just want your safe space to continue to be a safe space, which is your family.
Yes.
It gives you the peace and that inner joy that you have.
Yes.
You just continue to go on.
Thank
and when I write my book, you'll be the first one to know. When I say I'm doing it,
Absolutely.
I'm going to call you and let you know I'm doing it.
Absolutely. I'm ready. I can't wait. It's already done.
It's already done. It's already done. Listen, this is my time. Real Chicks Rock, we're everywhere. We're on Instagram. We're on Twitter, which is now X, right? We're on Facebook. We got a website, realchicksrock.com. You should subscribe. Go to the YouTube channel. Ring the little bell so you don't miss any more episodes, because these conversations and discussions be good. You need them in your life. You heard what the lady said. It's a book about to happen. It's already done. She said the book's already done. So listen, before I leave, I want to leave you with this. May you live to be 100, and I live to be 100 minus a day. So I never had to know that beautiful people like you had passed away. Thank you for checking out Real Chicks Rock Presents Real Discussions. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next show.